Hi, I'm Jenny. Today we're going to be talking about a fundamental part of embroidery, stabilizer. Stabilizer is crucial to quality embroidery, but with so many products available, choosing a stabilizer is often confusing and overwhelming. Today I'm going to help you understand the very basics, what stabilizer is and why we need it, the 3 basic types of stabilizer, and how to choose the right stabilizer for your project. When we talk about stabilizer, we are either referring to backing, which is used underneath the fabric, or topping, which is used on top of the fabric. Let's talk first about backing. Backing can be a woven or non-woven material, sometimes resembling paper, which does not stretch when pulled. The purpose of backing is to provide support to the fabric being embroidered. You see, fabric isn't really made to be embroidered. When we choose to embellish fabric with embroidery, we need to understand that we are forcing thread into the fabric to create a stitch, and in so doing, the fibers of the fabric will have to move around to make room for that stitch. You may have heard of the terms embroidery pull or fabric pull. The stretchier the fabric, the more susceptible it is to being pulled by the embroidery design. Pull results when the needle exits the fabric and the thread is pulled tight against the fibers. This angel is a good example of a design affected by pull. Notice the gaps between the fill of the wing and the outline. Anytime you see gaps between filled areas, outlining and adjacent fills, or if stitches look uneven or not as bold as how they appear on the production sheet, your design is suffering from pull. This is where the use of a good backing comes in. When we use backing, we are reinforcing and stabilizing the fabric, preventing the fabric from stretching and moving during embroidery, and therefore reducing embroidery pull. This particular design has fallen victim to puckering. Puckering occurs when the fabric isn't stable enough and the stitches have pushed or trapped the fabric during the embroidery process. For example, this design was not hooped with the proper backing. As you can see, the stitches are pushing the fabric before it, bunching the fabric and creating a pucker. Now I'm embroidering the exact same design, this time with a secure backing. Because the fabric is now stable, the stitches are no longer pushing the fabric around, and I won't have problems with puckering. Another reason to use backing is because some fabrics simply do not have enough support to hold stitches properly. Fabrics that are too thin need the extra thickness and stability that backing provides. We all want our embroidery to be consistent and beautiful, so remember to stabilize your fabric every time with a good backing. Now let's talk briefly about topping. Topping is placed on top of the product being sewn and is often a thin piece of plastic-looking material. Topping holds down the nap of the fabric during embroidery and is commonly used when embroidering on thick and fuzzy fabrics such as fleece, terry cloth, or corduroy. This prevents stitches from sinking and getting lost in the fabric, leaving your embroidery looking crisp and well-defined. Although often used on thick, nappy fabrics like towels, many embroiderers also use topping on other fabrics, piqué for instance, or any other fabric that seems to be absorbing your stitches. Anytime your stitches seem to be sinking too much into your fabric, try using a good topping. Both backing and topping live up to their names as stabilizers. Backing works by stabilizing your fabric to where there is no shifting during the embroidery process and creating a secure foundation for the stitches to form. Topping works by stabilizing your design, keeping it from sinking into your fabric. Now that we've discussed what stabilizer is and why it's important to embroidery, let's talk about the 3 basic kinds of stabilizer. In this video, I'm only going to cover 3 basic categories: tearaway, cutaway, and soluble. Now there are many kinds of backing available, but each kind of backing is either a tearaway, a cutaway, a soluble, or a combination of these. Because we're not talking about each specialty backing here, be sure to watch our shorter demonstration videos for each of these backings, where we will show you how each specific product works. To see a demonstration video, simply click on the product you want to learn more about, then click on the Product Presentation icon to watch the video. Now, having said that, let's talk about the 3 basics: tearaway, cutaway, and soluble. Each backing does exactly what its name implies. Tearaway easily tears. Cutaway does not tear. You have to cut the excess backing away. And solubles dissolve, usually by water, but sometimes by heat. Let's talk first about tearaway. Tearaway is a popular choice among embroiderers because it's easy to use and easy to remove. Tearaway is often lighter weight than cutaway. When selecting a tearaway, you'll want to make sure it's high quality. Hold tearaway up to the light to make sure there are no thin-looking spots. You want your tearaway to have a consistent thickness. If you see any thin or bald-looking spots, you may have problems during embroidery. Make sure that your tearaway can tear in more than one direction. If the tearaway only tears in one direction, you may have problems tearing it off without distorting the stitches of your embroidery. All of the tearaways sold on Embroidery.com are high-quality products. We carry a variety of brands, weights, colors, and specialty products to help with any project you have. When selecting a backing, you'll want to consider two main factors: the type of fabric being used and the nature of the embroidery design. Tearaway is meant for use with stable, non-stretch woven fabrics that are able to hold stitches well. You don't want to use tearaway on stretchy fabrics like t-shirts or sweatshirts, but tearaway is a good choice for stable fabrics. I used tearaway when I embroidered this stuffed baby lamb design onto this receiving blanket. This is a good fabric to use tearaway on. It's a nice woven fabric that doesn't stretch. Other good fabrics for tearaway include quilt fabrics, polycotton blends, and canvas, anything that's a tightly woven, stable fabric. When choosing a backing, it's also important to consider the design being embroidered. This design is a solid design around 5,000 stitches, so using a standard tearaway worked very well. As you can see, I can very easily tear the backing away, leaving me with a clean and beautiful result. Generally speaking, tearaway works well for designs with a low to medium stitch count. You'll also want to take into consideration the nature of the design itself. This rosebush design has many intricate spots. It would take me a long time to pick and tear stabilizer out of all the tight little places, so in this case I chose to use a combination tearaway washaway, which is a blend of tearaway and water soluble. All I have to do is tear what I can easily tear away, and any remaining fragments of stabilizer will dissolve when this fabric is laundered, except for the residual fibers left underneath the stitching, which will provide ongoing support for the design. Remember, we have a wide variety of tearaway products on Embroidery.com, so be sure to check out our demonstration videos for each unique product. Now let's move on and talk about cutaway. Every embroiderer should have a good supply of cutaway on hand, as most of the fabrics we like to embroider on are stretchy and not stable. For example, t-shirts, sweatshirts, and polar fleece. A cutaway backing is a good choice for knit fabrics. Not only does cutaway stabilize the stretch during the embroidery process, but it also helps to keep your design's shape intact after repeated use. Cutaway comes in different weights and styles. When choosing a cutaway, look at the stitch count of the design you want to embroider. The higher the stitch count of the design, the heavier your backing needs to be. For heavy, dense designs between 18,000 and 50,000 stitches, use a heavy cutaway. For designs less than 18,000 stitches, use a standard or medium weight cutaway. Most designs for the home embroiderer will be less than 18,000 stitches. This African mask design, which has a lot of shading, is around 12,000 stitches. Standard cutaway worked very well here, and I have a beautiful sew out. I just trimmed the excess backing away with my scissors, not cutting too close to the stitches, however, and the cutaway that's left will help the design maintain its shape. Cutaway also comes in a lightweight 1.5 ounce mesh. A mesh type of cutaway works very well for thin fabrics, as it won't show through your fabric and it feels soft and comfortable against the skin. You can use mesh cutaway for designs around 8,000 stitches or less. It's nice to use a mesh cutaway on clothing that will be right against the skin, as it won't scratch or irritate. Now let's go ahead and talk about solubles. Soluble stabilizers are used in a variety of ways. We've already talked a little about topping. Many toppings are water soluble. When water-soluble topping is used, simply rip the topping away from the embroidery, and if there are any remnants left, just dab some water and the topping will dissolve. There are also many types of water-soluble backings. Some of these backings are clear films, which come in light or heavy weights, and some are fibrous. Water-soluble backings are wonderful for those creative projects such as lace designs, appliques, or any project where the design needs to stand alone. Water-soluble backing was used in creating these fun embroidery projects. Once the design is stitched onto the stabilizer, you simply dissolve the stabilizer with water, leaving just the embroidery behind. Water-soluble backings are useful for projects where you're going to see both sides of the embroidery. They're also nice to use as a backing for sheer and lightweight fabrics because they stabilize the embroidery without adding a lot of bulk. You definitely don't want to see stabilizer through your fabric, so it's very handy to be able to dissolve the stabilizer when you can. Water-soluble backings are not for use with all fabrics, however. For example, you don't want to use a water-soluble on a dry-clean-only fabric. There are stabilizers available which are designed to disintegrate with heat, which many people like to use on dry-clean-only fabrics. These stabilizers break down under the heat from a hot iron, after which you brush the ash away. We've just gone over the basics of tearaway, cutaway, and water-soluble backings. Now let's talk about how to choose the right stabilizer for your project. First, determine what kind of fabric you're embroidering on. Is it stable or is it stretchy? Tearaway is convenient to use, but is only meant for stable, non-stretch fabrics. Cutaway needs to be used for stretchy, non-stable fabrics like t-shirts and sweatshirts. Next, evaluate the embroidery design you want to use. How many stitches does it have? Remember that the more stitches a design has, the heavier the stabilizer needs to be. Also, analyze how the design is put together. Are there intricate parts of the design where removing stabilizer will be difficult? It's also important to consider the purpose of the embroidered item. Will you be seeing this item from both sides? Will the embroidery be lying against the skin? Which backing will be the least visible and most comfortable? The best way to really become educated about stabilizer is to experiment. Everyone has an opinion on which stabilizers are best, and you need to formulate your own preferences. You may want to start with a sample pack with a variety of different products to try. Also, ask your friends what they like to use and exchange ideas. Try lots of products from different companies to see which you like the best. Stabilizers come in many shapes and sizes, including pre-cut squares and big rolls. Today we've talked about just the basics. But there are many kinds of specialty stabilizers available, from fusible to self-adhesive and everything in between, so be sure to watch our highlight videos to see how each product works and how they can benefit you. Just remember that fabric alone was not made to be embroidered, but with help from the right stabilizer, you can create the right conditions for your embroidery to sew out beautifully and cleanly. A good stabilizer is the solid foundation of quality embroidery.